At this time, we'll call the April 19th, 2024 meeting of the Wilson County Planning Commission in order. Anyone wishing to give testimony before this board today, if you would, please stand and raise your right hand. I hereby affirm the testimony I give today to be the whole truth, so help me God. Say I do.
I do.
Thank you. We need to approve the minutes from the March 22nd meeting.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve, Ms. Weathers,
Yes, sir.
a second by Mr. Renfro. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion will carry. Tom, we will start with the site plan.
Really?
Mr. McFarland's phone quits ringing. We'll start with the site plan for 104-440 Central Pike, which is under our old business.
With the Board of Zoning Appeals request denied, staff cannot recommend approval at this time. This is 10440 Central Pike, map 99, part of parcel 17. This had to do with an existing, I don't know if it was referred to, and I don't remember it being called this, but it was referred to in the Board of Zoning Appeals as the site of the loose caboose on Central Pike. And they have since begun what began as an internal remodel, which at present we do not permit. Because of the significance of what they tore down, it became a new construction from our perspective and would have required site plan approval. They started that process. They went to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a series of variances and were denied. One of those variances had to do with the actual front setback of the property, which the existing building that they were remodeling was already in that place. They just pretty well knocked it down to maybe 1 to 2, maybe 3 courses of wall on 3 sides once they got the roof off and realized there were some structural issues with the walls. When they did that, they should have come in for a site plan and gotten an active building permit. And that's sort of where this started. So anyways, we're kind of in limbo with it right now. And we're going to ask that you not approve it at this time, maybe deny it without prejudice until such time as something can be resolved.
Okay. Do we have anyone here today wishing to speak on this? Mr. Dean?
Good morning. I'm here representing the project, and obviously there's still some hay to cut on this, but we would just request a 6-month deferral so that we can continue to work with planning and some of the interpretation issues on the code.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Yeah. We have anyone else wishing to speak on this case today? Okay, we'll close the public comment. Do we have any questions from our board?
One, Tom, is that the long-term original owner?
No, it's a new owner that has purchased the property and proceeded to start with a remodel that turned into a new construction in the course of their
What would be your
rehabilitative work.
How did you define that, Tom? I'm just curious here.
Well, we've typically tried to interpret that, if they leave the walls up, for the most part, that it's an internal remodel but once they tore the roof off, and per the applicant's contractor's testimony at the Board of Zoning Appeals and with us, they found significant structural issues with the original walls, and so they had to bring them down. But at that point, from our perspective, it constituted a new construction.
Is the footprint the same as it was originally?
Karen, can you help me with that one?
I think it is.
I don't think it's any
I don't think it's any,
significantly different anyways.
I think it's any larger.
You know that answer, Mr. Dean?
To my knowledge, the footprint has not changed at all. They got the roof off. The walls were just cinder block and were not core filled. So they took it down to the point where they could get down in there and place some structure. Obviously, the interpretation right now is that the level that they took it down to, I think it was 3 blocks, and there's one side that was higher. But the interpretation that planning has right now and building department is that was taking the walls down. They intended to get it down to a level where they could work, but not fully take it down. So I think working through that interpretation, working through the specifics in the ordinance and the specifics of what demolition, where that line is, and trying to figure that out is kind of why we need the extra time.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Any other questions from our board? I will make a motion that we defer this case for 6 months, with no prejudices. Second by Mr. Renfro. All those in favor vote aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion will carry. I will also make a motion that we, defer the zoning ordinance amendment 2024-002 to the end of the agenda. Do we have a second? Second. Have a second by Ms. Weathers. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
But those opposed? That motion will carry. Time will go straight to the site plan for the Amazon Fulfillment Center payment modifications.
Give me just a second. I'm catching up with you.
I'm sorry.
Train coming.
Yeah. It's that Watertown train.
You let me know there's more.
All right. The next item on the agenda under new business, site plan for Amazon Fulfillment Center. This is predominantly a site plan for pavement modifications at 120 Darrell Waltrip Drive with technical corrections. Staff can recommend approval, and those would include stormwater engineering and any WEMA or fire marshal and utilities district comments.
Are they changing the number or just realignment?
It's pretty much just a realignment. Here it is. I don't know if that shows you a whole lot, but it's sort of a realignment of how they get into the property. I think they're adding a little bit of turn radius for trucks and
Do we have anyone here today representing this case? Do we have anyone here wishing to speak on this case today? Do we have any questions from our board? Do we have a motion?
Recommend approval with staff recommendations.
We have a motion from Mr. Ash, second by Mr. Renfro to approve subject staff recommendations. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion will carry. Ready for the site plan for CASA 2710 entrance sign, Tom?
yes, sir. This is a subdivision entrance sign that's being proposed for the CASA development at 27 or CASA 2710 on South Mount Juliet Road. If I recall correctly, I believe this would be the CASA development on the west side of South Mount Juliet Road. The site plan meets requirements. Staff can recommend approval.
Anyone here representing this case today? Yes, sir.
Morning, Kyle Griffin, CSTG. Don't really have anything much to say about this one. Just here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak on this case today? Do we have any questions from our board? Do we have a motion?
Move approved.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Thompson, second by Ms. Weathers to approve. All those in favor vote aye. Those opposed? That motion will carry. Ready for the site plan on the McPeak land on Maddox Road?
Mr. Chairman, this is a site plan for the McPeak land on Maddox Road. It's a new development at the very end of Maddox Road before you get into Rutherford County, going south. And with technical corrections and stormwater engineering, WEMA and fire marshal comments and utility district comments, staff can recommend approval.
Do we have anyone here to represent this case today?
Good morning, Brendan Bowles, Kimley Horn Associates. Happy Friday. Here to answer your questions for you.
Thank you, Brent. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak on this case today? Do we have any questions from our board? Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Jewell to approve, second by Ms. Weathers. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion will also carry. Site plan for the Cedar Forest mini storage.
Yes, sir. This is a site plan for the proposed Cedar Forest mini storage. This is just a little bit north of Cedar Forest Flea Market and Cedar Forest Market on the same side of the road. With technical corrections, staff can recommend approval, inclusive of stormwater engineering, WEMA, and utility comments.
Mr. Lane?
Randy Lane with TTL. We're here to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak on this case? Have any questions from our board?
Just one, sir.
Yes, sir.
This is standard storage, or is it like controlled environmental? Just curious.
No, there are some indoor units, but they're not, my understanding right now, not environmentally
standard standing seam
Yes.
type buildings, et cetera.
The front's got some facade to it that
Brick.
meets requirements, yeah.
Yes, sir.
The front has to be masonry or some, and so much down the side.
Yeah, and then landscaping, et cetera, all the building.
That's correct.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions from our board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion approved from Mr. Ash, second by Mr. Thompson to approve. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion will carry.
Very little.
Thank you, sir. Have a site plan for the Color Blast Landscapes at 75 Couchville Pike.
Yes, sir. This is, I'm going to point this one out back here now that I can do this, so that you can see it. And I'll point it up here for the audience. This is the lot. This is the corner lot at Couchville, McCreary, and, Vesta. This lot is being proposed, if you may recall that these got rezoned to C4 commercial. We actually have two. The one next door to it was at the Board of Zoning Appeals yesterday getting variances to establish a dental office. And this one is wanting to establish a landscaping, more or less landscaping contractor's office. And in talking with them, they're not talking about keeping a whole lot of landscape material there or anything, but they do, at least they've told me that they plan on making the place look probably significantly nicer than it does now. I mean, right now it's the house is boarded up from the last time it was inundated, and they're talking about cleaning that up, obviously. But they're also, being in the landscape business, they're going to, do some things that'll probably exceed our minimum landscape standards for commercial development.
House is flooded before, hadn't it, Tom?
Yes, sir. So the
Just got in the AC.
yeah, it got in the AC unit, probably in the crawl space. But the windows were boarded up by the original landlord, which I think was Mr. Dugdale. So anyways, the site plan will need to be modified to avoid jeopardizing the soils area. They have proposed gravel over some of their soils area. And will need to provide an engineered site plan to comply with engineering comments. And other than that, they just need to comply with utility district comments and any WEMA comments.
So you would be recommending,
Recommend approval.
subject to those.
Yes.
Have anyone here today wishing to speak on this case? Yes, sir.
Morning. I'm Corey Williams with Culver's. I'm just here to answer any questions, if anything, anybody needs any help on it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this case today? Any questions from our board?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Did I hear right? The building is going to be reused or torn down?
Reused.
It's remodeled. Okay.
And as opposed to prior use, it was originally a residential building that was most recently rented out to residential tenants. At this point, it's being used for commercial purposes.
Reason for the question was the previous discussion about partial tear down or what the walls were, et cetera.
Right.
Any other questions from our board?
Motion to approve based on staff recommendation.
I have a motion from Mr. Turner to approve based on staff recommendations. Do we have a second? Second from Mr. Noakes. All those in favor vote aye. And those opposed? That motion will carry. Ready for the preliminary for the Midway Mill subdivision on Mercersville Road and Jennings Pond Road.
Yes, sir. I'm drawing a complete blank on what they've named this. When I first got here, this facility down here was known as Cedar Vine Manor. I cannot remember the new name. I apologize, but this is right across from it to the north off Jennings Pond Road, and this is 231 South or Murfreesboro Road. And this is the parcel in question that they are proposing a subdivision on. It's a preliminary plat. All of the lots that meet or exceed the 80,000 square foot minimum lot size in the A1 district. They've also made some modifications to their building envelope to account for a stream that crosses the property, as well as simply trying to keep some buffer between they and the, I guess, the attractant or the destination that's over here, so as not to just, I think to be good neighbors, to not disturb whatever they're doing over here, that people go out there for short-term stays for kind of a pastoral setting. And with the larger lots that are being proposed here, I think it will help support that pastoral setting as much as anything that they could do under development, at least. So with minor technical corrections, staff can recommend approval. Staff needs more information on how karst features will be addressed. There are quite a few sinkholes and solution channels across the property. We have pictures that you may see of some of them. That was on one portion of the property that my staff member was on, and I was on the far eastern end taking other pictures. I think his pictures made it into your packet, mine did not, but I had a couple pictures of sinkholes as well.
Just sitting on top of a river, really.
Sitting on top of a rock, anyways, and a few holes.
We need a discussion about extending some water lines down through there. There's a series of people right through there that doesn't have any water.
I'd have to confer with it. I don't know if that's Eric Broomfield's district.
No, that is,
Water and Wastewater Authority.
Most kind of water authority.
Yeah.
Chris is here.
Y'all butt up there pretty close.
Oh,
We're on the other side of Cedar Forest.
oh, okay. I stand.
So I stand corrected. I will have to I would have to confer with Eric Broomfield about that.
You know probably who I'm talking about.
Okay.
Tom, what kind of recommendations do you make on that kind of topography when you run into that?
Well, we obviously want them to look into it and try to make sure that they account for it with their building envelopes, trying to stay away from those. There are buffers that stormwater requires based on the size of the watershed that are either 30 feet from top of bank that has to remain undisturbed or 60 feet from top of bank that has to remain undisturbed. If they must disturb one, which happens more often probably on commercial sites, they've got to go through a process whereby they're either capping it or cleaning out the hole with a deep well injection permit. Not always, but after doing a geologic analysis, they may have to do some things like that. So,
Okay. Anyone here wishing to speak on this case today? Yes, sir.
Good morning. Richard Howes with SEC, here to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak on this case today? We have any further questions from our board?
Yes, sir. I heard rock and river and et cetera. Just want to clarify that. This can perk or has been perked and verified, et cetera,
I
Tom?
assume it's a step system.
Because-
It will be a step
preliminary
system.
plat, but it's going to be on a step system.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't hear that.
We have already had the soils work already done. We've got, working through with TDEC on the step system approval at this
Are you
time.
building a step system or tapping onto one in the?
Building one.
Okay.
It will be owned by the Water and Wastewater Authority of Wilson County
Yes.
Correct.
and maintained by them and their
How
contract.
many lots will it accommodate?
We have it designed for 23 and we only have 22 lots. So
Someone's still hauling soils off of that? or-
I couldn't tell you. I do not know.
The parts that we saw, at least that when we went back in there, were largely wooded. On the part I looked at, I didn't see anything but woods, and I don't think it's been touched in a good while.
Directly behind.
And I think the part he got pictures of doesn't show any clearing either.
Toward the road more, this is more.
You are. Yes, sir. All right. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this case today?
There is one house on the property. I should mention that. It'll be removed, but the current landowner that they're purchasing from is living in it, as I understand it.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Any further questions from our board? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion to approve, subject staff recommendations by Mr. Jewell. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Weathers. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion will carry. Ready for the preliminary for the subdivision renewal on Stewart's Ferry Pike, the
Yes.
Solitude. I'm sorry.
This is a preliminary plat on Solitude subdivision. It is a renewal of a plat that had expired according to our subregs, and they're just seeking renewal of the same layout, exact same layout that you've approved prior. There were some commitments made, I think through rezoning, that allowed for construction entrance to the primary part of the development down here, or I'll point over here down here at Stewart's Ferry Pike. There's I don't know if it's a Bell South switching terminal, AT&T or something, but right next to it, they would install a construction entrance off Stewart's Ferry Pike, while the primary permanent entrance into this part of the neighborhood will come off Rhonda Road. But for construction purposes, they're going to have a construction entrance and kind of develop back out towards the construction entrance.
Okay, thank you. Anyone here to speak on this case today?
You're not proposing to modify that as we understand it, correct? There are also some buffering requirements on the north side, as I recall, as well.
Yeah. Joe Haddock, CSDG. Good morning. There were also some evergreen trees that we were going to plant along that construction access to buffer that. I think the only staff comment we're aware that remains is about the amenities shown. Staff is requesting a smaller sport court and a playground. On behalf of our developer, we would request amenities be approved as shown. They feel like their demographic and what these homes will be priced for and what they're going to see move in, a full-size sport court would be more beneficial, and playground probably wouldn't get much use. So I can answer any other questions y'all may have, but I believe that's the last question.
You want to speak to that, Tom?
Well, I mean, the only thing I can speak to it is just tell you that we would work with the developer. He doesn't technically have to provide the ultimate open space improvement plan until he provides road and drainage plans for approval, which generally happens between preliminary and final plat submittal. So I can work with them through that process, and if we're not satisfied, we can bring it back to you regarding open space.
Is that reasonable to you, Mr. Haddix?
Works for us.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this case today? Any questions from our board?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
What gave you pause for the size of the playground, et cetera?
You want to address that, Christopher?
It's just, currently it's a grass soccer field, and active amenity we currently have is a paved multi-use, doubles like volleyball, tennis, basketball court. So we don't count a soccer field as an active amenity because it's a grass field, and we have no way of being assured that it's going to be maintained throughout the history of that development. So we were asking either a half court in addition, or we can work with them and maybe add some sort of small pavilion, or we'll get more details on these.
Under review after
Yeah.
drainage is looked at.
Yes, and what we're getting at there, when I first arrived here back in 2001, we were getting open space developments or cluster provision developments or planned developments, what have you, that had open space that were largely passive. And while the ordinance speaks to the need to provide for passive space and possibly protection of things like flood zones, things like that, what we were finding is if there was no improvement in it, people would move in and then they would get a homeowners association due fee because they had to carry liability insurance on or whatever, and they would be in our office wanting to impeach their homeowners association president and turn over the open space to the county, which it was never the county's to begin with, nor do we have any use for it at a county level for the most part. So we very quickly modified some of the language in the cluster provision in particular to require some form of active open space. And so that's what we're looking for, is something that tells people when they drive into the neighborhood to buy a house that they look over and say, oh, they either see the plan in the model home for the development, or they see the actual improvements and say, oh, there's open space here. I bet there's an HOA and I bet I have to pay dues, so that they don't have the ability to come in and claim.
Basically, differential between active and non.
Yeah. Yes. So that's what we're concerned about at the scale they're talking about, and that's what we'll discuss further with them.
Any other questions from our board? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Subject staff recommendation.
Staff recommendations.
And y'all are in agreement to work with the staff going forward on the amenities, correct, Jeff? All right, thank you. Have a motion to approve subject staff recommendations by Ms. Weathers, second by Mr. Ash. Sorry, Mr. Thompson, I apologize.
Before you vote, I feel like giving you a little bit of additional information. This got a variance from the 100 lots requirement for a PUD, or the 50 lot requirement for a PUD. And as such, that's part of what they're up against, is they've got less lots to spread their open space improvements between. Yeah, variance from the 100-acre requirement. So they've got less lots than a normal PUD would. But they did get approval from the county commission. Yeah.
We have a motion to approve subject staff recommendations and a second. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion will carry. Now we're ready for the site plan, for the Dollar General on Woods Ferry Road.
Yes, sir. You approved this at a previous meeting. We are again recommending approval. If you could switch to the site plan. We're again recommending approval, but there have been some changes. The original development, this is the old site of the Lagardo Utility District office building. And at the time Lagardo Utility District was there was an entrance off of Woods Ferry Road as well as an entrance off of 109. The original site plan you approved for Dollar General had an entrance off of Woods Ferry Road and an entrance off of 109. The applicants went and talked with the road commission, and due to, I guess, improvements in road commission standards over the years, the road commission has begun requiring widening of existing roadways where you're attaching commercial development to it, new commercial development to it, with center turn lanes, decel lanes, etc. When they tried to do that, or when they looked at having to do that on Woods Ferry, they being the applicant, and I'll let them explain it here in a minute, there was an existing fence that's been there for a number of years by a residential neighbor across Woods Ferry that's in the road right of way from all indications. But again, it's been there a long time. They were going to have to make some of these improvements. They were going to have to address that with that owner about taking that fence down and possibly replacing it further into their yard. They were also going to have to move Lagardo Utility District's water line and some power lines. Is that correct? So suffice to say, they're back to you today doing away with their entrance on Woods Ferry so that they don't have to do any of these widening. We actually worked with the road commission and talked with them about a kind of they were making them widen it all the way to the northern end and then tapering it down from there further north. The entrance was down in this vicinity before, and so what we talked with the road commission about was, okay, what if they widen it to just beyond, maybe 2 car lengths beyond the entrance coming southbound, to the entrance that they had there proposed, and then tapering it down, and in return for widening it on to 3 lanes with a turn lane at the intersection of this little crossway between Woods Ferry and 109 that's existed for a number of years as well. After presenting that compromise, if you will, to the applicant, they still didn't feel they could make their pro formas work. With the amount of work that would be required, they'd still be required to move water lines, power lines, and everything else. So what you see before you is a site plan that has the single entrance. Staff has some concerns about that because it is a busy state route, 5-lane road section. People going northbound trying to turn into this Dollar General are going to have to cross traffic. They made the point to us when we talked about them as late as yesterday that they actually have better visibility at this intersection than they would down here at the existing intersection spin to the south of the property for a number of years. But we are recommending approval because it is commercially zoned. It's a use entitlement. But we just wanted to bring it back to you since we felt a significant change in what you approved originally, to let you at least reconsider it if you need to.
Tom, what the road commission say about that?
The road commission I don't think they have indicated any problem if they choose not to have the entrance on Woods Ferry. They're okay, but if they do have the entrance on Woods Ferry, they want it widened.
Do we have the authority to speak into that, Tom? That would be
That'd be a question for Mike. The planning commission has authority over site plan design. I have no question about that, but because of the road commission's primacy over roads in state law at a county level, I would say the road commission is going to get the last word on most any consideration.
Yeah, doesn't overlap.
Okay, Mr. Dane.
Thank you for your time. As Tom mentioned, we were here a couple of months ago, received your approval on the site plan. After talking to them, there's obviously, like he's mentioned, there's performa issues here, but the overriding issue is just the constructability. What they asked for is a 3-lane section. It's about 16 foot wide right now. If you've been down that road, very, very small road, not even 2-lane. They asked for 3 12-lane or 3 12-foot lanes and then a 2-foot shoulder on each side. So we would be trying to fit a 40-foot road section and a ditch on each side into a 50-foot right of way, which is, it's just not doable. So while the reduction in the amount of widening obviously helps the pro forma, it doesn't help the constructability. And we feel, just to kind of give a little bit, certainly when we presented it to you originally with a connection to Woods Ferry, we thought that, it was better than not having it.
It's a connection on the original one at the existing entrance.
Essentially, where that came down, where that
Right
last
here.
little parking lot is, we just kind of turned and came into Woods Ferry at a 90 degree.
Okay.
So it was about right there. A couple of things. Obviously, that's the way we wanted it the first time. We just feel like we have a constructability issue here. We did circle back with the road commission. The road commission says that if we don't make a connection, we don't have to do the requirements, or we don't have to do the improvements. So that solves that issue. That's the reason we're back in front of you today. A couple of salient points here. This Woods Ferry connection to 109 is about mid-block between Tyree Access and Stewart Road. Between Woods Ferry and Tyree Access, there's only 5 houses. Between Woods Ferry and Stewart Road, there's only 3 houses. So the amount of, while the road commission says that, there's a lot of traffic down Woods Ferry, certainly if they want to get out to 109, they can get out on Tyree Access, or they can get out on Stewart Road. Between Tyree and Stewart, 8 houses.
Down past where Home Run Market is and turn there. I forget what the name of the road is, but
I guess that's across from Academy.
yeah.
So there's a couple of different, this is not like Woods Ferry is the only place that you can get onto 109 in this area. It's 1,300 feet north to Tyree Access and 960 feet south to Stewart Road. So we're just back in front of you requesting for approval for this layout. If you have any specific questions, I can answer those. One other fact I'd like to give you is between Highway 70 and the river, there are 23 businesses or I'd say non-residential, whether it's a church or a business. 17 out of those 23 have a single access. So 4 have no access, 2 have multi-access. So we don't feel like this is out of character for this stretch of road to ask for a single access. So would you like to say something? This is Monty Turner.
Before he gets up, Charlie, TDOT will have to approve your entrance.
Of course.
Right.
Let me add on it. Right now, of course, Legardo, we all, probably are familiar with that drive there. It was an open curb cut, probably 70 to 75 feet. So we feel like TDOT's going to be in love with this proposal that reduces a 75-foot wide, open cut to, 36 feet. So we feel pretty good about that.
But when TDOT, my mind, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
TDOT comes, they'll come with a traffic study too, because that is a tank.
Yeah. And I don't know what TDOT will require, but I can tell you TDOT will have to permit his driveway cut. And he is correct. Legardo Utility District, even though it may be fuzzy in everybody's memory, did have more or less an unlimited curb cut off of 109. Even though it was narrower, 109 was narrower there. It was only 2 lanes or maybe 3. Now it's 5. This does limit them down to a more standard commercial cut of 35 to 40 feet.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, Tom, Christopher, staff, Charlie. Thank you all for your comments. I'm Monty Turner, developer. Just to reiterate what Charlie said, we don't feel like there's any meaningful adverse impact on accessibility for the customers. Speaking from a design standpoint, from me as a developer, as well as a representative as Dollar General's developer. Their trucks can still access. The customers, obviously, that would have accessed Woods Ferry can still do so, turning right out of the site and then right onto Woods Ferry.
That's
And
a mile down to the red light, Charlie, from there. If you turn back to the
At
south.
Academy,
Academy?
Yes, sir.
Academy is 1,400 feet.
a little over a quarter mile. And you can, if you're on Woods Ferry, you can pass this site and go on down and come in behind the gas station to that red light.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
no problem. And the TDOT entrance now, I believe when they widened 109, they went ahead and built that. But again, after approval, hopefully here, we'll obviously get started with the TDOT process and obtain that permit. So if there's any other questions, I'd be glad to try and answer those.
Thank you.
In short, staff just felt it was a significant enough change from what you approved before that we wanted you to at least look at it. And
I do see a ton of value in having an access to Woods Ferry because there's multiple roads all the way down to Creighton Lane coming back to the south. What is there? Probably 5 different. Right. But there's 4 or 5 different points you could come in from the back way here, and you could actually go all the way down and use red light to get in.
And the road commission's policy is couched in the basis that everywhere is growing for the most part in Wilson County right now. And while there may be very few residents right now, there are still some larger lots up Woods Ferry that may at some point develop and cause additional traffic to be put on Woods Ferry. Also, if there were an accident, Woods Ferry is very much used as a frontage road to detour in certain circumstances. So, and I think it's actually called out as a frontage road in our major thoroughfare plan.
Okay. We have anyone else here today wishing to speak on this case? Any questions from our board?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. Renfro.
Just curious here. I don't remember this one, so I'm not sure I was president or even on the board at the time. So new guy again asking some questions. I guess fire and services have been consulted to get to this far. It looks just like a tight lot to get fire trucks to the rear or anything there. What Sheriff Ash and I are concerned about a lot in the backside of the property. Are they able to get around in case of an extreme fire or they have to react? That kind of thing. Because my next question is preface for that, okay? When you go, you're not getting an entrance on that road, but Wilson County is notorious for creating their own entrances. So we got a lot of trucks running around here. I have one, but they're all through Wilson County. I can give you an auto parts store that created their own entrance off one of the apartment entrances right over here in West Main. And that can cause problems. So are you creating a ditch that is adjacent to that property to keep that from happening because people get an accepted entrance and cause problems?
There's an existing ditch down the north side of Woods Ferry, and we don't intend to do anything with that.
Okay. So they're not going to be able to get in there easily and create their own entrance and.
Well, like you said, some country boys can get creative,
Right.
but
There was a driveway cut there previous.
right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
What I'm saying is that I just didn't want this to look like a skirt around, that we're not addressing any kind of turn lanes, but they're going to go in that way anyway. And then
yeah,
car damage, truck damage, whatever it might be.
well, I mean, we'll have curbs on our parking lot. We're not intending to leave it open as this kind of an invitation. If somebody drives across our side yard, I don't know that we can really do anything about that. But that's not something we intend. And for that matter, if there's something we can do in terms of
As far as fire,
a little bit of grading or something.
the fire marshal is here, but I believe one thing he's been asking for is 360-degree access to the building. So that may be something that we'll cover prior to stamp of approval, but.
Well, I thought that we had submitted to Mr. County and he'd reviewed at least ours. I know he's been working with them on the building stuff and some of the interior questions and sprinkling and things like that. But his original comment was location of the fire department connection, some things like that. I made those adjustments and to my knowledge, he's satisfied. Yeah, to my knowledge, he's satisfied with the plan. But if he's not, we'll get him satisfied.
That point, I want to
Is that
make.
accurate, Mr. Cowan? You're satisfied with the site plan? Okay.
Excellent. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions from our board? Do we have a motion?
Over approved.
We have a motion to approve subject staff recommendations from Mr. Thompson, second by Mr. Jewell. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion will carry, sir. Thank you.
Who made the motion in second?
Mr. Jewell, Thompson made the original motion, Jewell seconded.
So you approved it, right?
We did, yes, sir.
Okay.
We're now ready for plats for affirmation, Tom.
Okay, we have following plats for affirmation that are staff approved or in-house, based on state law and your permission to do so. We have 2 lots at, re-subdivision of the First Industrial LP property at Maddox Road and Couchville Pike in Commissioner Hobbs District, references map 138, parcels 4105 and 41.10. We have subdivision of the 3160 HP Trust property consisting of 1 lot in Commissioner Beth Bowman's district off Hartsville Pike. References map 44, parcel 35.05. We have 2 lots being re-subdivision of the Teddy Stewart property. That's a typo, should say Stewart, not Stewry. At 484 Northwest Williams Road. In Commissioner Jerry McFarland's district, map 27, parcel 39.01. We have subdivision of the Paula Joe Fox property consisting of 1 lot at Cairo Bend Road and references map 34, parcel 40.01 in Commissioner Jerry McFarland's district. And we have re-subdivision of Clay Estates phases 3 and 4, lots 87B, consisting of 2 lots at 423 Carley Court and 3022 Trice Place. References map 36H, Group E, parcel 7 and 7.02, and being within Commissioner Jerry McFarland's district.
I have one question, Tom. I've never seen you do one of the commercial ones like this. What size was that total parcel?
Which one are you talking
The
about?
very first one, the First Industrial LP property?
That's a fairly, hey, Christopher, I'll have to ask my staff, did you or Naomi do the First Industrial LP property staff approval?
Naomi, but what is the question?
It's a commercial. He wants to know what the acreage was on it.
I don't know off the top of my head.
That's okay.
We could start putting that on.
That's just the first time I've seen you do in-house on commercial. You may have done others.
We have, but
We will do in-house on commercial if they're not adding additional infrastructure. This is the Rockdale properties, so they are just redrawing a property line to give one of their commercial properties. I believe it's like 2.4 acres, and taking away 2.4 acres from additional. The total site of those, I believe, is over 100.
Okay.
But they're not swapping to.
Naomi has something to say back there as well.
I think they're like 43 and 51 each one. One's 43 acres, one's 51.
They're just adding property to another lot, basically what they're doing.
Yeah, they're like.
They're switching a couple of acres between parcels.
All right. Anyone with any questions on any of these cases? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve based on staff recommendations.
A motion to approve based on staff recommendations from Ms. Weathers. Do we have a second? Second from Mr. Turner. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion will carry.
Okay.
I believe we have a gentleman here wishing to see if we will consider his case on a sign thing for Willow Landing.
Yes, sir.
You familiar with that?
Yes, sir. I will let them present it if that's okay with you.
It's not on the agenda. Do we need to vote to allow them to be heard, or?
That would be up to you. You'd have to suspend the rules to add them to the
This is
agenda.
just a sign to go in front of a subdivision, correct? Do we need us to vote to do that? Yeah, vote to suspend the rules? Yeah.
Make a motion, suspend the rules.
Second. Motion is set from Mr. Hash, second by Mr. Thompson, suspend the rules.
Question. Is this a precedent or have we done this in the past?
We have done some before, depending on the severity of it, how much review was actually necessary. We have sometimes, have not other times.
In years past, it got so bad, we stopped this.
I was about to say, you could have 24 people lined up at the door in the morning.
That's what you got to be careful in
Well,
doing.
if this were a subdivision, we wouldn't be having this conversation. This is just a.
Yeah, I mean,
subdivision.
By size and quantities supposedly before.
We want to make sure the staff has the proper.
Well, where the problem occurred was we had surveyors coming in after submittal deadline, well after submittal deadline, asking to be added to the agenda. And we would have 4 or 5 on an agenda, asking to suspend the rules and be added to the agenda. And we kind of feel like subdivision designers, surveyors, generally, they're frequent flyers here. They know when the deadlines are and everything else. So that's why they started limiting them. But this may be more of a one-off where,
Math and science is important to me, so delineation has got to be on. So we know the break point. Yes, you're accepted, and no, you're not, or is it ambiguous? I'm just clear for me so I can either support or follow my colleagues. And
I understand that. You'll have to make that decision, sir.
I believe in the past, when there's been requests, you've always added them to the agenda. It's up to you after you add them, whether to send them through the normal review process and resubmit, or approve the plan and just subject to staff recommendations at that time.
Well, that's still available.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are we still in discussion on the motion?
No, you just suspended the rules.
We're still in discussion.
But we can move forward with it.
So we're just talking about the entrance design.
That's it.
yeah,
Not the subject.
What's all
This is it. Okay. Please come forward. Okay, I apologize. We have a motion to suspend. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion will carry.
How are y'all doing this morning?
Fine, sir.
I'm Drew with Southern Green. We are building the signage for Willow Landing, the primary front entrance sign, and just hoping to get y'all's approval today and answer any questions you have.
Okay.
Both packets in front of you before the meeting, if you wanted to skim through them.
Okay, anything we would do here would be subject to y'all's review and comments anyway, correct, Tom?
yes, sir.
I think that would be,
Well, I mean, I think that would be wise to put that in your motion.
I agree, sir.
So basically, we're constructing a sign off of Mace Chapel Road that will be primarily built with a natural stone veneer. There will be cedar that will be added to it, and then raised aluminum lettering that will say Willow Landing with a image of basically a tree that represents that neighborhood.
It does look good on paper. It's pretty.
Hope you make it look that good and read.
We'll make it look even better.
the magic of rendering.
All our mailbox regulations are still in place, aren't you, Tom, about?
The key.
All the mailbox kiosk stuff, yes.
You'd have to ask him. We have any questions as this from our board? Tom, you have any other input on it?
No, sir.
Christopher? I will make a motion. We approve this subject to staff review and confirmation.
Yes, sir.
Do we have a second? We have a second from Ms. Weathers. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion will carry.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank
you,
y'all.
sir.
Thank y'all so much.
We also have a, you're looking, we moved the, on-street parking requirements to the end of the agenda. Tom, we'll deal with that now.
It wasn't on-street parking, I don't believe. It was, oh, yes, it was. I apologize.
Yes.
The on-street parking requirements are, I've amended that resolution. Prior, we were taking on-street parking completely out of the zoning ordinance. After discussing it with the sheriff, they would like to do a trial run, keeping the language that we have in the zoning ordinance with some assistance from them. If we go out and do, if there's what we were running into is our zoning officer was going out based on a complaint from someone. And when they would get there in the middle of the day, the car's not there, which is when we have business hours. So if we have a finding where we don't find anything there, then we are requiring, or we're now going to refer those to the sheriff's office for them to patrol in the evening. And if they find something there in the evening, they'll go knock on the door based on the zoning complaint and inform them, we're not here to do anything. We're not here to cite you or anything unless they're in front of a fire hydrant or something. But we're informing you this is a zoning violation and you're probably going to get a letter based on what we found here in the middle of the night. And then they'll forward that back to us and we'll act accordingly in zoning enforcement. So that's what they want.
Are you asking us to change anything, or are y'all just going to change the way you're dealing with it?
Well, no, that's how we're changing that. The other thing that came out of that meeting was they and we felt, and that was actually their suggestion, that we add a clause, and that's what we're adding at this point, a clause about if in subdivisions that require HOAs, that the HOA shall be the first line of regulation and enforcement. They'll have to address that in their regulations and address it accordingly if it's something that their neighborhood doesn't want. What we've been having in many cases is an HOA president or an HOA manager calling and saying, we've got cars parked on the street and they're not supposed to be. Can y'all enforce that for us? Well, it's in their deed restrictions, which we don't enforce, but we do have this zoning requirement. So yes, we have to go out and enforce it, but we feel as though if they want to enforce, they ought to have a hand in it as well.
I agree with that. Anyone here wishing to speak on this today? Any questions from our board?
I don't see a march here, Tom, the particular one you added on the sheet. You said you added some verbiage. Get the underscore here.
Yes. Yes, that and right below it, where it says where homeowners live. I was in the wrong place. So last time you saw that, it said delete the section in its entirety, and that's all that we were doing. Now we're not deleting the section. We're keeping it, but we're adding that language about the HOAs.
So, yes, sir. What kind of teeth does this thing have? Is it that now within an HOA, if I remember right, they issue a fine?
That's their fine.
Their fine, not ours.
Not ours.
But if it has any issues with services, fire,
That's a ticket. That's a police. That's a
that
police
is there.
enforcement action.
That doesn't change any of that at all.
Right. This is a zoning violation. If it's routinely happening that we cite them for, it goes to court and they can be fined for up to $50 a day, with each day being considered a separate offense, if I understand correctly. Is that right?
Has some teeth to it.
Yes.
Okay.
So if I understand what you're saying here is that it, in a nutshell, it's putting the frontline enforcement of this on the homeowners association.
I think what we're asking is that if they're in a homeowners association neighborhood, that they at least present evidence that they saw
got it
enforcement
first.
before they call us asking us to carry the water.
And what about a non-HOA?
Non-HOA will go in like we always have. Now, having said that, in the modern era, we don't have a lot of subdivisions that come out of the ground that this would apply to, in terms of being significant subdivisions, 5 lots or more that don't have an HOA. If for no other reason, because of mail kiosks and things like that.
Did you want to speak into this, Mike? Okay. I didn't know if you just get comfortable.
No, I'm just getting out here hoping y'all are about done.
Okay.
That's what we are. Sorry.
I understand. Any other questions from our board? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve the amendment
Second.
from Ms. Weathers, second by Mr. Renfro. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? That motion will carry. Thank you.
Okay, so, the other item I have is a home occupation amendment you should have a copy of. The one comment I've had from anybody came from a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals. And there was some discussion about it at the Board of Zoning Appeals, and that's part of the reason that I was even looking at the home occupation amendment. Between that and enforcement of it, we were seeking additional clarity about what constitutes a home occupation versus an out and out commercial operation in a residential area. And the one concern that was brought forward had to do with the 600 square foot language. We put 25%. 25% is the existing threshold that's already in there. We added 600 foot onto the basis that that's the same criterion we apply to accessory dwelling units, and we've already got that figure in there. There's nothing magical about it, but we were saying we were trying to differentiate it. And honestly, that's going to be hard to enforce too. How we're going to tell whether or not you're using 600 square feet or 1,000 square feet.
Yeah, typically you don't know way and measure.
No, we don't go in and measure.
But if you don't have some kind of threshold,
yeah,
you're going to run into a problem
Right.
at some point. Somebody's going to have a large home.
Right. The larger things that we're trying to clarify is what we will consider a home occupation in terms of specific uses and what we will not, as well as some aspects that have caused problems for us, such as having commercial dumpsters in a residential area, an apartment complex or otherwise. But yeah, and we're not saying you can't have a dumpster for a temporary basis if you're taking your roof off or if you're remodeling your home, but on an ongoing basis, we're kind of making the point, a commercial dumpster on a residential lot doesn't make a whole lot of sense in a residential area. And in fact, it is something we're receiving a myriad of complaints on, at least
one example I can name. But that's more or less why we did it. We did have a workshop on this. I did try to amend this as best I could to
And
address
that couldn't have been easy
the
based on that
things
workshop.
Well, no, there were some things that people wanted to do in there that would effectively take an entire rewrite of the zoning ordinance to design it differently, which is something that probably does need to happen. But that's not what I'm trying to do here.
And I don't know that 600 square feet is a magic
Yeah.
number, but you do need some kind of top threshold. And if you're okay with that number, I guess I.
And I'm not sweating whether we keep that in there or not, I guess is what I'm telling you. Some of the clarifications we did try to make about uses that we will consider home occupations and some of the caveats we put in there, I am a little bit more interested in.
How are you gonna be able to get in a home and see?
On the measurements, we're not. I mean, I really don't, that's why I'm not that eaten up about whether or not it stays in or not, because right now we can't really effectively do what the current ordinance calls for, which is the 25% threshold. Well, other than just take someone's testimony that they're not.
Well, and you hope people try to follow some of the
Yeah,
rules.
Mr. Chairman, that's like the speed limit. People are using it as a suggestion. People going 90 when it's in, 55. So I kind of like it having a number.
I do.
Engineer too.
I don't know the magic number, but I'm like you. I think there has to be something.
Yeah.
So, any other comments from our board?
If you're in, I mean, if you were of the, because there was discussion at the Board of Zoning Appeals yesterday, if you have an interest in, maybe you think there ought to be a number, that may be couched in the fact that we're getting a lot more 1,200, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, even 3,000 square foot accessory buildings put on properties in the county, where they'll have a house in front and they'll have this huge building behind them. And the first person that builds it may have no ill intent whatsoever to residential use, and they're putting their jet skis and their garage and their man cave in it, or she shed or whatever. But the next guy sees that large of space and says, you know what, I could put my tool and die shop in there, or I could put my boat and RV repair shop in there. And that's a commercial endeavor,
Yeah. You got a terrible job on that end.
Look at Karen.
Well, I mean, it's not,
What has to do that?
a lot of what you could build a 5,000 square foot mechanic shop out back, and if you acted right, nobody would ever say anything, but let them put one dumpster in there and they'll call every day.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Chairman, look at number D. Commercial branded vehicle, which is fine, like a pickup truck, but then you got dump trucks, semi-trailers, and I guess this is in perpetuity. They would stay there for as long as they wanted. There's no time limit on that?
We're prohibiting this.
No, it says no more than one commercially branded vehicle or one heavy vehicle such as a
Right,
dump
so
truck,
that means I could put
trailer, and no more than
an
one.
over-the-road camper or an over-the-road sleeper there and leave it there.
You got truck drivers that live in Wilson County, and that's their primary vehicle. And you also have farmers that occasionally will have a semi cab.
You get this high-end developed 3,000 square foot per house development, and it's not an HOA, and they can just park those things right there and not anything to worry about.
With one of them.
Yes, it's okay.
Okay. We have any other questions from our board?
Oh.
Do we have a motion?
What's it, Chris?
Motion to approve it as he has it stated here is what we're saying. No changes.
We have a motion from Mr. Jewell to approve as drawn, second by Mr. Turner. All those in favor vote aye. And those opposed. That motion will carry.
I'll do that with my tongue in cheek.
Some of this you learn as we go, so
We always change.
we are,
It may be back before you again.
I do want to open the floor up to any public comment. The state law, requires us to have a public comment section after each meeting. Anyone want to speak to this board about anything? Seeing none, we'll step into Mr. Jennings.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to bring y'all up to date on the lawsuit that we tried March 28th. LGI Homes sued us for our decision from several months ago. Did you do the court reporting on that? You didn't, did you? Okay. It was Hawthorne Valley is what it was. And we denied that. and they took it to Chancery Court. The insurance company assigned a lawyer, Jeff Thompson, and he and I defended the county, and we were trying to dress this up for you, but we were entirely unsuccessful. Chancellor made pretty short work of it, as a matter of fact. So my point in telling you that is we have 60 days from the date of the decision to appeal. If you wish to appeal, or you can, I need a decision one way or the other, not necessarily today, but certainly by the May meeting, because that will be getting close to the end of the 60 days. But I will go ahead and tell you I will not recommend an appeal.
I see no reason to involve in that
Want
anymore.
a motion today that we,
That'd be fine with me. I can find a place to hide that file and put another one in its place.
I'll make a motion that we accept the chancellor's ruling and move forward with no further action on Mr. Jennings' behalf. Have a second by Mr. Thompson. All those in favor vote aye.
aye.
Those opposed?
I have a question.
Is that what you needed?
Mr. Jennings, does the order outline what our action is to be if we're not appealing it?
The actual written order has not come in yet, and as I was driving back over here from Trousdale this morning, I've been over in your neck of the woods, I was trying to think exactly what he did. I think he just ruled from the bench, or he sent it back and said us to put in the minutes that was the decision. Yeah,
So that they are effectively approved.
yeah. I mean, there's no wiggle room. It's just
Back before them for.
no, none of that. And
Continue with the review process.
yeah, and Eric's confused now why I was in Trousdale County, and there's no football game. That's what. Yeah, we were over there on the rock quarry case, which is set for trial July the 8th, and we've had a bunch of depositions taken in that. The rock quarry people started out with George Dean as their attorney. We took a bunch of depositions. George is no longer in the case. Josh Robbins here in Lebanon is, and he filed a motion asking to go back and take some of those depositions that had already been done. He wants to ask more questions, and the chancellor said he could do that, but he had to do it within the next 30 days. The trial of that matter, guys, is July 8th. That's a Monday after 4th of July, and it is set for all week. So check your calendars. I'll need you there. It'll be tried here. Yeah. We went over there because he has chambers.
I have at least a staff member that's going to be out. But
Okay.
that week, but I should be back.
I mean, you and James are primarily the people I need, because y'all are the one that hung the stop work orders out there. And so that one's moving along, and we'll see if they take more depositions. But it's picking up a little steam now. It languished for about a year. We've got a temporary restraining order in place where they can't do any business out there. Nobody's tried to lift that or have it modified or anything. So no, well, yeah, Salisbury. Yeah, East Salisbury Road. So, and it's the old quarry. Y'all probably ready to go home. So anytime you want me to shut up, tell me. But
Last time, we got some time.
yeah, it's the old quarry that they used primarily to build the interstate back in early 60s. And the people that have come in there, Heritage Materials, are trying to say it's been a quarry all this time. And our position is, it's the grandfather clause is long since gone. And we took a deposition last Friday. It started at 10 o'clock and ended at 5:35 for a 30-minute lunch break of one guy. And he says he remembers the quarry being in operation out there at a certain time, and he used to ride by there and look at it, but nobody else remembers that. So, but anyway, that's going to pick up a little bit. I told his attorney this morning he was concerned about the additional cost. So if you want to make it go away, just agree with us and let's make the injunction permanent and tell the chancellor and it's over with. But
Big tract of land is it, Mike? It goes over that hill.
yeah, it's 50-something acres, I believe. Terry, and the another part of it is Albert Allison owned it.
Yeah.
And Albert put it in the Greenbelt, which doesn't sound like a quarry operation.
No.
So
Sounds like good testimony.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. So
Took a lot of rock out of there.
yeah, do what now?
It took a lot of rock out of that area.
Yeah, and there's still some piled up in there, and I think he said there's people going in and every now and then. Well, they shouldn't be because we've got it shut down, but probably some of the old boys up there go in there in their pickup truck and get them a little loader and get some rock and get out of
I'm
there.
not really worried about those folks.
That's not gonna be a quarry to our definition, but
Tom, did you have something else, sir?
One thing you will recall, last month's meeting was exceptionally long. I'm trying not to make this one exceptionally long, but Global Vision Church did get approved by you with certain caveats. One of those was that they begin in earnest getting the corrected site plans in and starting to try to have lead up to pre-cons and construction and permitting. And they have made contact with the stormwater and engineering departments about their civil packet and trying to make sure that they've got site plan documents that address both their concerns and ours about location of structures, et cetera. So they are starting that process in earnest. And
Great thing.
so far, they're on schedule. We did hear from a state fire marshal's report this week that they may have some intent of building a permanent building. And I just made sure to tell my staff that if they're talking with the design representatives, to make sure that they pass along that one of the caveats was that if they propose anything new, that it needs to come back through here with a site plan approval.
You're turning into Miss Weather. What was the deadline on that before he started proceedings on the?
He's got to do it within 6 months, and then he's got to have the site work complete within 12, roughly. I think that's what it was.
There, as you said there,
Make sure that's on the record.
Yeah.
No.
I heard that too, Eric.
Anything, did you get your question answered, Mr. Jewell? I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm fine.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Tom?
That's it. Thank y'all. Y'all enjoy the weather.
Good. Miss George? All right. We're adjourned.